All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the absolute most fascinating narratives of faith, logic, and sheer endurance ever recorded. We're diving into the incredible and honestly deeply challenging life of Prophet Ibrahim exactly as it's laid out in the classical text by Ibn Kathîr. Now, whether you know his story inside out or you're hearing these specific details for the first time, the sheer scale of the trials this man faced is literally going to leave you captivated.
But before we get into the miracles and the monumental challenges, I really want you to stop and ask yourself a crucial question. It's kind of the setup for everything we're about to see. What would you do if literally everyone you knew, your family, your community, your leaders, what if they all blindly worshiped statues made of wood and stone? Like, if your entire civilization was just fundamentally wrong about the nature of reality, would you have the guts to stand alone?
That's exactly what we're exploring today, the profound intellectual and physical trials of Prophet Ibrahim. We're looking directly at the historical accounts from Stories of the Prophets. We're going to trace his journey starting as this incredibly perceptive, questioning kid in a polytheistic society, all the way to becoming a steadfast leader who challenged kings, survived his own execution, and ultimately passed the single greatest test of human devotion ever recorded.
Let's start with Section 1, A Mind Awakening.
So Ibrahim grew up in ancient Babylonia, right? And get this, he was born to a father who actually sculpted and sold idols for a living. You can really see the stark contrast here between blind belief and a child's raw, unfiltered logic. His dad claimed that the massive ears on the idol Marduk meant deep knowledge, but little 7-year-old Ibrahim, he just laughed at how absurd that was. He realized right away that a deaf piece of stone couldn't possibly understand anything, no matter how big you carved its ears.
And you know, as he grew up, that reasoning only got sharper. This brilliantly illustrates his logic when he confronted another group in his society, the people who worshipped celestial bodies. Just look at the sequence here. He observes a star, but then it sets. He sees the rising moon, but it disappears too. Finally, he looks at the magnificent sun, calling it the greatest of all. But sure enough, when night falls, it vanishes as well. Through this absolutely flawless deduction, he figured out that anything bound by time and space, anything that rises and sets, is just a creation. So he turned his focus entirely to the actual creator of the heavens and the earth.
Which brings us to Section 2, Smashing the Idols. Now, having an intellectual realization is one thing, but taking action? That's a whole different ballgame. Deciding it was time to confront his community's traditions, Ibrahim uses what's essentially Socratic questioning. He asks his people a really simple logical question. Do these idols hear you? Can they actually benefit or harm you? And look at their response. They completely abandon logic. Their only defense was basically, well, we just found our fathers doing it this way. They were actively choosing blind tradition over rational thought.
So Ibrahim knew words just weren't cutting it anymore. He needed a visual demonstration. During a massive local festival when the town was completely empty, Ibrahim sneaks in with a sharp axe, walks right into the main temple, and just smashes all the statues to pieces. Well, all of them except for the largest one. When the townspeople finally return from their festival, they are absolutely horrified. They look at the rubble of their so-called deities and furiously demand, "Who has done this to our gods?"
When they drag Ibrahim in for questioning, he delivers this brilliantly witty, completely legendary response. He points straight at the biggest idol, the one he intentionally left intact, and says, "Nay, this one, the biggest of them did it. Ask them if they can speak." I mean, what a masterclass in exposing falsehood, right? By blaming the biggest idol, he publicly exposed the ridiculous reality that these stone statues couldn't even speak, let alone defend themselves or the other idols around them.
Section 3, The Blazing Fire.
But, as history so often shows us, when a tyrant's logic is defeated, they immediately resort to violence. Ibrahim's undeniable logic deeply enraged the idolaters, and this marked the beginning of his first terrifying trial of pure physical survival. The townspeople didn't just want to execute him, they wanted to make an unprecedented spectacle out of him. They built a fire so massive and a pit so incredibly wide that people couldn't even get close to it without burning their own faces. The heat was literally suffocating. In fact, to get him into the flames, they actually had to build a giant catapult just to launch Ibrahim into this raging inferno from a distance.
As he was cast through the air into the blaze, he had absolutely zero fear, relying completely on his creator. And that divine intervention? It changes absolutely everything. Allah issues a direct command to the physical elements themselves, saying, "O fire,
coolness and safety for Abraham. And just like that, Abraham emerges from the pit completely untouched. He was sitting there as if he were relaxing in a cool garden, his face bright with grace, while his oppressors just stood by, completely and utterly humiliated.
Moving to Section 4, Challenging a Tyrant. Word of this impossible survival spreads like wildfire across the land, and naturally, it brings Abraham face to face with King Nimrod, a tyrant so arrogant he proudly claims to be a literal god who controls life and death. But Abraham, he doesn't even flinch. When the king claims he controls life and death, Abraham delivers the ultimate checkmate. He looks right at him and says, "Verily, Allah causes the sun to rise from the east, then cause it you to rise from the west." Wow. It is a staggering moment of debate. The tyrant is utterly defeated and left completely speechless. He couldn't even attempt to answer the challenge. Now, let's shift focus for a second and see how this experience builds into Ibrahim's own intellectual journey. Because while his faith was rock solid, his brilliant mind still sought deeper understanding. He humbly asked Allah to show him exactly how the dead are brought back to life. And he's instructed to follow these highly precise steps. Take 4 birds, cut them up and mingle their parts together, place those portions on 4 different hills, and then call them back. He does exactly that, and gets to witness a breathtaking, staggering miracle, as the pieces fly back together and the birds are resurrected right before his very eyes. It completely cemented his absolute certitude.
Section 5, Building the Sanctuary.
So, despite all these incredibly clear proofs and miracles, almost no one in his homeland actually followed him. This forces Ibrahim to emigrate, pushing him into a completely different type of trial. Stepping away from intellectual debates and physical threats, he's thrust into tests of pure trust in a totally unknown environment. Following a direct divine command, he has to leave his wife Hajar and his infant son Ismail in the utterly barren, uncultivated, absolutely lifeless desert valley of Mecca. I mean, just imagine the level of trust required to leave your family with barely any water in a desolate wasteland. But Hajar accepts that this is Allah's command, fully trusting they won't be abandoned. And that massive test of trust, it results in the miraculous, gushing, life-giving spring of Zamzam, brought forth by the angel Gabriel to save the infant Ismail and his mother.
Fast forward a few years, Ibrahim returns to visit his family, and father and son reunite for a truly monumental task. They're commanded to physically raise the foundations of the Kaaba, the sacred house. But as they build it, lifting these incredibly heavy stones together in the desert heat, they don't boast about their achievement. Not at all. Instead, they pray incredibly humbly, begging Allah to accept their devoted service.
And finally, Section 6, The Ultimate Test.
You'd really think that after surviving a raging fire, intellectually defeating a tyrant, and building the sanctuary, the trials would finally be over, right? Well, just as life seems peaceful and his son Ismail is old enough to actually walk and work alongside him, Ibrahim is hit with the most unimaginable test of faith ever conceived. He sees a recurring divine vision that he is sacrificing his beloved, long-awaited son Ismail. Ibrahim doesn't hide it. He goes straight to his son, tells him about the vision, and asks for his opinion. And remarkably, Ismail completely mirrors his father's incredible faith. The boy patiently agrees, telling his father to do exactly what he's been commanded to do.
The sheer gravity of this moment literally cannot be overstated. As they both submit completely to this devastating, heartbreaking command, laying Ismail down, they overcome the ultimate emotional trial. They are practically proving, in real time, that their love for and submission to their Creator supersedes absolutely every single worldly attachment they possess, even their own lives and the lives of their children. But the knife never cuts. Because of their pure, totally unquestioning devotion, a divine call rings out declaring that the vision has been fulfilled. Allah rewards their astonishing submission by ransoming Ismail with a great sacrifice, a ram. Their unparalleled obedience ensures that they're left with a goodly remembrance for all generations to come, a moment that is celebrated by millions around the world to this very day.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. We've just seen Ibrahim face down an entire society, survive a raging inferno, and willingly offer up his deepest love in absolute submission. So, if you were stripped of everything, if you were tested with the sudden loss of your family, your home, your deeply held traditions, or your safety, would your resolve mirror the unbreakable, crystal-clear faith of Prophet Ibrahim? It is a standard of devotion that challenges every single one of us to look deeply at what we truly value. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the source text, and keep seeking the truth.